You're not going to get that kind of information from your friend. And a lot of times being with your friends is going to feel like you're in an echo chamber.
Welcome to Operational Harmony, Balancing Business and Mental Well-Being, a podcast with honest discussions about professional life and mental well-being in a natural conversational way. Your host is Nikki, founder of Nikki's Office, where she supports entrepreneurs through operations, systems, and strategy. And now, let's hear from our guest.
Hello, my name is Natasha Darkangelo, and I am a qualified supervisor in the state of Florida where I live. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and a licensed professional counselor. I am currently serving as the Chief Clinical Officer for LB Health, which is a 50-state mental health practice that provides things like autism assessments and ADHD assessments for adults that are a lot easier to book. We don't have a year-long waiting list. We have a week-long waiting list, and in network with most insurance companies, and really proud of the work that I do. I also do public speaking, and one of my favorite things to talk about is helping people understand mental health a little bit better. I think that there's a lot of stuff out there that is confusing, and mental health talk has some good stuff on there, but I worry that not enough people are getting information from actual licensed clinicians that have completed a 60-degree master or 60 credit master's degree and have worked on their licensure process and have to continue to take continuing education in order to maintain their licenses. So I am here hopefully today to help bring some information and help shed some light on some things that might be confusing to folks.
Okay. I look forward to that. So my experience is I am the one who sits on the opposite side of the room to you. I'm the one on the couch with all the stuff in the mental health department. That's kind of what I bring to the table, is as the person who has gotten some help and still needs more help. So my answers are not perfect, but they're my lived experiences. So how did you get started as a therapist? How did you decide this is what I want to do? I want to talk to crazy people every day.
So it happened by accident, honestly. I was a teacher once upon a time, so I used to teach, and I never felt like I was doing enough in the classroom, like what my students really needed. In New York, where I'm from, and that's where I was living at the time, everything was on these end of the year tests, and so it was a lot more about getting the students to pass these tests and not really about like what they actually needed to help them. And I didn't like that. That's not why I went into teaching. So when I moved down to Florida, I got a job for with Argosy University. And one of the benefits of going to school there, or one of the benefits of working there, was that I got to go to school for free. So I was like, hey, free master's degree, that sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Sign me up. And I was originally going to do either school counseling or school psychology because I'd only ever worked with kids. And a colleague of mine recommended clinical mental health counseling master's because it would allow me to work with a variety of populations. And, you know, sometimes there's one decision that changes the course of your life. And here we are. So I decided to do that master's in clinical mental health counseling. Have been in the mental health field ever since I completed my internship and graduated. I never thought that I would have really enjoyed working with adults, and I do still feel passionate about providing care to children and teens. But right now I only work with adults as a therapist, and I love it. I specialize in trauma. I work with a lot of folks that have anxiety, a lot of folks that are under the neurodivergent umbrella. Really like working with children of immigrants. I'm the child of immigrant parents, and so I'm really passionate about that. But yeah, this kind of happened by accident. It was not in my original life plan. And yet, I think that I ended up exactly where I needed to be. Being a teacher first has really influenced how I do therapy work and the way that I go about things. So I'm really glad that I had that experience, even though it didn't work out as a long-term career for me. So I've done community mental health. I've worked in an inpatient psychiatric hospital. I've worked in private practice. I've done nonprofit work, and now I'm back in the mental health tech space. So yeah.
Okay. So, one of the things you said you wanted to talk about are frequently asked questions. So,
Yes.
what are some of those?
So, some of the ones that I feel people are either don't know the answer to or are scared to ask, because I think there's still so much stigma and shame around mental health stuff. I do think that it got better in the midst of everything with COVID. Telehealth became much more of a thing. And so I think people who historically were like, no, I don't want to do therapy, were a little bit more open to the idea because they could do it from the comfort of their own home. But I do think that there's a lot of stuff out there that people still don't understand. So some of those are, how do I know that I should go to therapy? Like, what there's not exactly a blueprint of what that looks like. So that's a really common one. Why can't I just talk to my friends? I have friends. What do I need a therapist for? That's another really common one that I get. How do I find a therapist? Where do I start? How do I know if this therapist is going to be a good fit? And then I also think that there's a lot of mystery around therapy itself. So, what happens in a session? you know there Hollywood has this stereotypical, and I shouldn't blame them too bad because I do have my couch there. There's this vision of you're sitting on the couch and then there's the therapist with their clipboard, and what really happens in a therapy session, I think, is not something that a lot of folks are aware of. How long does therapy take? Like, what's the plan for that? And then another really common one that I get is, how do I know that it's working? So those are the ones, at least professionally, that I've encountered that I feel a lot of people struggle with
Mhm.
and just aren't even sure where to get started.
That's fair. A lot of those questions are pretty simple to answer.
Hmm.
Some of them a little bit harder,
Hmm.
but most of them are, in my mind, look, I have been dealing with my mental health since 2009, I think.
Hmm.
So, like, I've been through a whole bunch of garbage to
Sure.
get to the
Yeah.
diamond in the rough I have now
Yeah.
in my therapist.
Yeah.
But getting connected, the first obstacle most people think of is, I'm in crisis right now. How do I go to a
Yep.
therapist? First of all, if you're in crisis, you should be calling
The National Crisis Line.
yes,
Hmm.
that's what I meant. So
Yep.
calling the crisis line, going to the hospital, or if you know of the in 3-day inpatient area for your town,
Yep.
then go there. Those are the things you should be doing if you're currently in crisis. Do not wait. Do not collect
Yes.
200 gold. Go, because we would
Yes.
much rather you stay alive than you wonder, oh, well, I didn't know what to do, so I just
100%. Yes.
left the scene. And that's not how we want things to happen.
Yes, 100%. And for folks that are not familiar, 988 is essentially the mental health version of 911. Although you could call 911 also.
Mhm.
And there are, in all over America, behavioral health hospitals that are essentially mental health emergency rooms that are open 24/7, that are available to you in addition to obviously your local emergency room. So, yeah, those are definitely great resources. Some places have like a mobile crisis unit that would come to you. That's very variable, though. Some states and counties have funding for those things, other states and counties don't. So you're much better off, unless you're familiar with your mobile crisis unit, utilizing 911, 988, your local or behavioral health hospital.
Yeah, when I started out, I told somebody to take me to the hospital because I
Hmm.
was done.
Hmm.
And they took me to a behavioral health place,
Yeah.
and I stayed there for 3 days.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
there's no shame. If it's going to keep you on the earth, there is never any shame in it. Go get the help you need so that you can do better tomorrow or be better
Absolutely.
tomorrow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, if you think you might need a therapist, first evaluate why. And it's a 2-second thing. Am I sad because of things that happened in my past or things that are currently happening in my life? And if that answer is yes, then you could probably use a therapist, short or long term.
Mhm.
Some therapy, you don't always need a therapist forever. Sometimes
Correct.
you just need to get through the hard time you're having,
Absolutely.
and then you'll be fine. Me, with all the alphabet soup I have after my name, that has nothing to do with all the degrees that are under your name, I probably will be in therapy for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that that's a pretty common one that people get is they don't know how long therapy will take, right?
Mhm.
So let's give an example. A few years ago, at the height of COVID, actually, I had somebody come to me because they were moving up in their company, which is a good thing, but that meant that they had to start giving presentations and they were absolutely terrified of public speaking, were really scared that they were going to lose their promotion and or job, but this new role required them to do some public speaking. And we didn't work together for very long. I think maybe a couple of months while we worked through the fear. We worked on some coping skills. We did some practice stuff. And they rode off into the sunset and they were
Mhm.
fine. But as I mentioned during my introduction, I one of my specialties is working with folks that have experienced trauma. And many of the folks that come to me experience childhood trauma and then oftentimes trauma in some way, shape, or form as an adult. And so we're wading through maybe 40 years worth of history. I'm not going to be seeing those people for 2 months. That it's just not
Mhm.
feasible. I do hope that eventually there is a modality that can help those folks in the span of 2 months, but we're not there now. And so it takes us a while longer for them to be able to get to a place where they feel more comfortable. And the other thing that is not uncommon is you may start out seeing a therapist once a week, but then hopefully you start to feel better. You've learned some coping skills, you've processed through some things, you drop down to every other week, then you drop down to once a month. And then at some point, you and your therapist have a conversation along the lines of, I think you're doing better. You seem to be more well adjusted. You've accomplished the goals that we put on your treatment plan, and you know where to find me. Go live your life, do your thing. And if you ever need me, here's where to find me. And I always am hopeful that I get to that point with the clients that I have the privilege of serving. It's an odd job because in my intake session, I explained to folks that my goal is to put myself out of a job and for you to not have to come and see me anymore. And, it's exciting and sad when that happens. But I also am really hopeful for clients to go out, take what they've learned, and hopefully live their best lives. That's always what my goal is. Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. That is something. The only reason why I say I'll be in therapy for the rest of my life is I have a wide range of traumas,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a whole bunch of, like I said, alphabet soup after
Mm-hmm.
my name. So I have the PTSD, the CPTSD, the anxiety, the depression, the BPD, the bipolar. Like, people have just thrown stuff at the wall when
All
it comes
kinds
to
of
me
letters. Yes.
and just kind of let it ride. I am a very unique individual. And, like, do not take my experience as what you are going to have to do. My experience, until I met the friend that I currently live with, my life was garbage. I
Mm,
met her, moved in with her and her husband, and I am now safe and doing well, and I am good. However, the years and years and years before that
mm-hmm.
are a whole different mess all of their own.
Yeah.
So that's why I say I'll be in therapy for the rest of my life. There are things wrong with me. Not everybody is in the same place. Not everybody who has had one or two of the traumas, or even all of the traumas that I have, would need therapy for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Me, like I said, I'm a unique individual. I have been through a crap ton. My therapist has a timeline written out that went across 5 pages in tiny little writing. So believe me when I say I will be in therapy the rest of my life.
And that's everybody's situation is unique, right? Everybody's
Yes.
situation is unique. The other thing is that things can things pop up at different points in our life. Grief is a really good example of this. We're really, really good in the moment at there's so many details to figure out when somebody has passed away. There's a funeral to plan and there are services and there's, an obituary and all of this stuff happens. And that'll keep you busy for maybe a month or two. And then everybody goes back home, they go back to their respective places, and you're now left with the quiet and the permanence of it all sets in. And so oftentimes I don't see people for grief a week after it's happened. I see people for grief because it's 6 months in and they're beating themselves up because they're still crying and they don't understand why they're still sad and they don't understand why they're not over it yet. And so we may need to do some grief work for a few months. And then they get to a more resolved place with it because grief is not one of those things that you get over. I hate that term. To some, you're always going to grieve that person forever and ever. Amen. There are some weeks that it will be easier. There are some weeks that it's really going to suck. There's no predicting what week it's going to be.
There's some predictions you can make
for anniversaries and things like that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Other than that, it just comes when it wants to.
Sometimes there's a song that comes on and all of a sudden you're in the middle of your bedroom floor sobbing. So,
hopefully not in the middle of Walmart, because that does happen too.
Although sometimes it does happen in the middle of Walmart. So sometimes people coming to me for grief may need to be doing grief work for maybe 6 months or so, sometimes a year. And then they get to a place where it doesn't hurt as much. They're aware that hurt is always going to be there to some degree, but they feel comfortable kind of going on and living their life. So it definitely doesn't have to be a forever thing, and everybody's situation is unique. If you've experienced one loss in your life, what therapy looks like for you is going to be very different than if you've had 10 losses in your life. Grief compounds upon itself.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different factors.
Yeah, that is for sure. I have not lost all that many people close to me. I have lost a couple that I'm supposed to grieve. And I say that way because they were people who were not good people. And so while they have tags that were attached to them, I don't grieve them. I didn't grieve them as much as other people have grieved them.
Sure.
Just because of the situation I lived. Yeah. So I understand, and I've been around people who have, gone through it and are still grieving years later after something. So I completely understand that that is a thing that happens. And I don't want to come across as cold by saying, yeah, no, I don't care that they're dead. But because of the traumas that those two people who I was close to who died put me through, I am not as sad about them dying as maybe some other people in their lives were.
Absolutely.
Just because, fun times. So what were some of the other questions you asked?
So there were signs that you need therapy. Why can't my friend be my therapist?
Okay, the friend being the therapist thing. So like I said, I have like a 4 or 5 page timeline of all the things that have just craptastically happened in my life. That is like 0.0002 font, right? Like my therapist writes so tiny and she still needed so many pages.
Yeah.
And she just took like 1 or 2 words down to mark like what happened or whatever. So like if I went to my friends and told them every single last detail of every single last thing that happened to me, I wouldn't have any friends anymore. They would be running for the hills because that's just way too much for them to deal with. I know that I overshare my mental health enough as it is, and that's without going into details or anything. Because somebody will be like, oh, well, this never happens. And I'm like, actually,
Ah, I would love you
actually, that
to.
does happen. I lived it,
Yeah.
Um, and that whole, well, it happened so many years ago. Why can't you just get over it?
Yep. I hate that one. Oh, I hate that one.
I don't know. Maybe because I can't get over anything, apparently.
Well, because it lives on in your nervous system. That's why. And if it were as easy as just getting over it, I would have done that years ago because this is not fun.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why.
My friend has a memory like a sieve, so like her bad memories seep out. She keeps some good memories, but she'll even forget a lot of those. And not in a way like she has Alzheimer's or something. She has some timers. Sometimes she remembers and sometimes she doesn't. Okay? It's just like that.
I like that. Yeah.
I am like an elephant. I
Mhm.
never forget.
Mhm.
I hate it. I really wish I could forget half of the stuff that has happened to me,
Yeah.
or half of the things that I've done, right? Like
Sure.
if I had half the memory I have, I would be doing so much better off. But I don't. I have the I will never forget this type of memory. And so if I went and talked to somebody, first of all, it would take months for me to spit it all out. And before I got to the end, that person would run for the hills because my life has been unhinged until like 5 years ago, six
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Wait, no, this is 2026 now. I
Yes.
met
We just
her
started
in
a new one.
20, at the end of 2017, moved in with her in 2018. So like 8 years? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Math is not my thing.
Math is not my thing either. Nope. No.
So like before 8 years ago, it was every day was a new ride and not the fun ones. It was the
Hmm.
creepy part of that boat ride when it came time for the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the creepy boat ride. Like
Yeah.
that was my life, unhinged like that forever
Yeah.
until 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So, like, no, don't talk. You can't just talk to your friends about it, even if it's just your grief about your husband who died, because eventually they're just going to look at you. And if they've never experienced a death, if they've never experienced somebody that close to them dying, then they're going to look at you like you're nuts.
Right.
Why are you still crying? Get over it already.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
heard those words way too many times to count, and I'm telling you now, you will get pissed off and you'll want to hit somebody. Please don't.
Yep.
It's illegal,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you'll want to.
Yep.
And that's why you go to a therapist, because if a therapist tells you to get over it, you can walk out of their office and go to the front office and be like, yeah, that chick ain't going to do that anymore. I need a new therapist.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing with our friends is that they are amazing, and
Mhm,
hopefully you have chosen high quality people to surround yourself with. That in and
mhm,
of itself is a battle. But your friends are not trained professionals, right? They didn't go to school for this and get all the training and education, and the master's degree is the most expensive piece of paper that I own. So they're too close to the situation. So they're
mhm,
not going to be able to be objective, right? Let's say that, I don't know, something happens with you and your romantic partner. Your friend is going to be on your side. It's
exactly what
going to
I was
be
about
like,
to say. They're going to
yeah,
be like,
babe,
girl, he's
they
treating you wrong.
suck. Just you can do so much
You,
better.
yeah.
Which, and then again, that feels good. And we do need those people in our lives. That's not what's going to happen in a therapy session, though, right? In a therapy session, the therapist is going to take a look at the patterns of the relationships that you've, well, this is the 10th relationships that you've been in this year, and we're only on day 2 of the year. So let's take a look at what that's all about, right? You're not going to get that kind
Mhm,
of information from your friend. And a
mhm,
lot of times being with your friends is going to feel like you're in an echo chamber. So
mhm,
you're complaining about your romantic partner, and what are you hearing? Yeah, they suck, you can do so much better, blah blah blah. And it's like the same thing back and forth, which
mhm,
again, yes, that is fulfilling, but it doesn't really help get you to a place of, okay, so what do I do? Like, what's
mhm,
the solution here? And then you called out the one of the ones that I always like to mention too, which is we naturally have a fear of judgment.
mhm,
we don't necessarily want to tell our friends all of the things, because if we tell them all of the things, then what are they going to think about us? What if I tell them that I'm embezzling from the company? What if I tell them that I'm having an affair? What if I tell them, about those things? There's naturally going to be some kind of hesitancy.
You
And
should not be embezzling from anybody.
yeah, please don't embezzle.
Let's not do that. I don't
Please
even
don't.
think you should tell your therapist if you're doing that, because that's illegal. Like, just don't do that.
Yeah, don't embezzle from people. But we're going to have a fear of telling those things
Mhm.
to our friends, right? We don't want them to look at us as though we're some kind of horrible person. But you should be able to go to your therapist if you're having an affair. I've worked with many clients that have been in that situation, and not feel like you're being judged for it, right?
Mhm.
And that's not necessarily something you're going to get from your friends.
Yeah.
So your friends are amazing. You absolutely should have them. They should play a role in your life.
Mhm.
Not the same thing as having a therapist.
Yeah. My therapist would give me a side eye and then just be like, okay, so let's unpack this,
Mhm.
because she's worked with me for 3 years. And so
Yeah.
she would know, like, chick, what are you doing?
Yes. Yes. Yep.
The other
Absolutely.
thing I want to point out with therapy instead of your friends is I read a lot. Look, I am one of those people who likes to hear about the drama, but not be part of the drama, if that
Mm,
makes sense. So I like
yes.
listening to those stories about
Yes.
stuff on Reddit, that kind of thing. Perfectly fine. A lot of them are AI stories. I don't care. It's a dopamine thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. One of the stories I read recently, not read, I listened to recently, was like this chick had 3 friends, all of whom had gotten a divorce within the last 2 years,
Okay.
right? And they start going out clubbing once a week. And this married chick starts going with them. And they start filling her head with stupid crap.
Oh.
So she comes home to the husband one night and is just like, I'm going to have the one night a week with my girls, and you're not going to say anything no matter how late I come home, because it's with my girls, and you can shut up. Otherwise, you're being abusive. What? Number 2, we're going to have meetings on Friday afternoons, and you're not allowed to be home, and you have no say in this. So just get over it. Excuse me. No. No. First of all, if you are listening to the garbage coming out of the mouth of people who are bitter after a divorce, you're
Mhm.
the stupid one in the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very sorry to tell you this, but you are the dumb one. Second of all, if you go home and you're like, hey, look, this is the way it's going to be, there's no talking about it, you're just going to have to live with the choices I've made, that's no longer a partnership, and I would hope that he would leave your butt.
Yep.
I guarantee you, I hope he leaves your butt.
Mhm.
Because that is unhinged and reckless behavior. And again, you let them, people who were toxic because of being just fresh out of divorces, talk you
Right.
into something that they absolutely were looking forward to your relationship crumbling to.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that goes back to friends not being able to be objective,
Exactly.
right? They're
And
way too
it's
close to the
also the
situation.
concept of frick around and find out. Like, if you
Yes.
keep messing with the wrong people, if you keep having, if you as if you as a married person only hang out with people who are divorced, guess what? You're going to be divorced.
Mm-hmm.
It may take a little time, but you listen to enough of their mouths going, you're going to end up divorced.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be just as bitter, and your husband's going to be like, yeah, bye.
Yeah. No, thank you. Not interested in it.
Not interested in that kind of thing. I don't hang out with people like that. As soon as somebody turns toxic, I'm like, yeah, I used to like being your friend. I don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can be that blunt sometimes because people expect it of me.
Mm-hmm. It's hard because I do think that a lot of us have a fear of being alone, right? Because I work with a lot of people with histories of trauma. It is sometimes very difficult to recognize that somebody is toxic until things have gotten really, really bad. So yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. basically, if your friends start trying to change your relationship and say, oh, you have to put this boundary and don't let him tell you otherwise, maybe walk away.
Yeah.
Because, look, yes, you need boundaries in any relationship, friendships and significant other relationships,
Mhm.
whether they're whoever they are, right? I don't
Mhm.
even care. Doesn't matter. Significant other is a great way to say that. But if somebody's telling you, hey, you should put up this wall between you and that person, whether it's your significant other telling you to get rid of a friend or slowly cutting you off from all your friends, hey,
Mhm.
that's a bad thing too.
Yep.
Or if it's your friends trying to put up a wall between you and your husband or significant other saying, hey, he treats you bad. Dude, if he goes to work and comes home and is tired, I don't see how he's treating you bad. That's something you have to decide. Nobody else is in your home 24/7 to be able to say that.
Mhm.
Maybe you need therapy to help you figure that out.
Mhm.
But at the very least, we don't go putting walls up between people until it's absolutely necessary and there's actually a problem there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd just be snipping off everybody, and we don't need to be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we do end up boxed in and either alone with our partner who ends up doing things that they shouldn't, or you end up out on your butt because your friends led you to say some unhinged stuff to your significant other. And they're like, yeah, bye, Felicia.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And they don't want to put up with it anymore.
hmm
Exactly. Yeah.
And it goes both ways. Like, I'm not saying as a female, the female's always right, because guaranteed 50% of the time you're wrong, at least 50%. Same with a guy, him saying something 100% of the time, no, he's not right. 50%, maybe.
Mhm.
Unless you have somebody like my sister who's a pathological liar.
And then all
Verify
bets are
freaking
off.
everything. Verify. Don't believe
Yes.
anything till you have verified. Because that's a fun little game to play.
No, not so much. But again, this is where when you have a therapist who's not there every day, who you don't work with, who you're not going to run into at the gym, who you're not going out to dinner with, they
Mhm.
are truly an objective third party. That's where you can get different insight into things. And oftentimes, I might end up being the only person in the lives of my clients that call them out on their stuff.
Mhm.
Well, you told me that you're ready for your relationship to go in a different direction, but the only thing that you ever refer to your partner as is, a stupid piece of crap. Can we take a step back and see how that doesn't help you get to your goal of improving things between the two of
Mhm.
you, right? And that's not necessarily something that you're going to hear from your friends
Mhm.
because you may still be in that echo chamber. Yeah, they suck.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
you could be like me, and when something goes wrong with me, even though I'm very verbal otherwise, I'll shut down. I'll
Mm,
stop talking. I'm not talking to anybody or anything. And I'll go into therapy on Tuesday and still just be kind of sitting there. And she's like, oh, okay, we're not doing the silent treatment. We're going to talk here.
yeah.
And she'll make me talk and we'll work through whatever it is that I have gotten into my own head about, because
Hmm.
it's probably something that anybody else would have rolled their eyes at and kept going. But my
Hmm.
brain, like, latched on and was like, we're not letting this bone go.
Yep. Yep.
And so she's able to give me that, hey, you're not stupid, but the reason why you're silent is stupid. So let's fix it.
Hmm.
And so we're able to get me back up and running,
Yeah.
because it's important to be functioning if you're an adult. It's
Yeah.
important to be functioning if you're a human being.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. We do need that. I think too, one of the big mysteries of therapy is like, okay, so what happens? I found a therapist. Also, I do want to make note. The first therapist that you meet may not be the therapist that you end up working with.
Oh, yeah.
I think that that's another thing that is not really well understood. Um, that we have a broken healthcare system. 100%. There's so many
Mhm.
things that need to be fixed.
Quested not to meet with the same person
Yeah.
even then, because during the intake, I've had some, okay, I don't talk to males. I don't
Mhm.
want to be trapped alone in a room with a guy. That is my worst nightmare and not something I want to have for my therapy,
Yep.
just because of my own trust issues and the big T traumas that I have gone through. But so, like, I've done intake with a guy, and he'll be like, okay, so when I see you later, I'm like, haha, so sorry, but no, 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 I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I gave you the idea that you could be my therapist, and I am very sorry because I know that a lot of people prefer females, but I cannot.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And so even then, you can request somebody else. If you go into intake and that person automatically assumes that they're going to have you as theirs, but you're talking to this person and you're like, yeah, if I have to talk to this person for an hour once a week, yeah, no, this isn't good. You
Mhm.
can tell them. I would prefer to be matched with somebody else, male or
100%.
female, whatever your preference is. Some people, some males only want to meet with males because they've been hurt by females. Some females only want to meet with males because they think females are catty or whatever. So you get assigned to whoever you're comfortable with, but you have to be your own voice at that point.
Mhm. 100%. You have to
Because
be
I
able
have
to
had,
advocate for
like,
yourself.
one of the intake people I had at one point had a really nasally voice, and I have sound sensitivity. And
Mhm.
if I'd had to listen to her for an hour a week, I'd have walked out with half of my hair. And let's not do that. I have way too much hair for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that that's something that people understand. I have had a lot of conversations with people over the years that feel like because they had to wait so long or it was such a pain in the neck trying to get somebody that was in network with their insurance that they're kind of stuck with whomever they get the first appointment with, and that's just not true. So there have been many, many studies done over the years, and they have studied, does it matter if your therapist has a master's degree or a doctorate degree? Does it matter how many years your therapist has been in practice? Does it matter what modalities your therapist uses and is trained in? And what the underlying research tells us is the single biggest predictor of whether or not therapy is going to be successful for somebody is the relationship between the therapist and the client.
Mhm.
So the bottom line is that you have to feel comfortable with that person. You have to feel like you can trust them and that you can open up to them and talk to them. If
Mhm.
that's not there, then therapy is not going to work for you. And it's not because you did anything wrong. It's not because there's anything wrong with them. It's because that's just not what the research tells us is going to work. So
Mhm.
it is perfectly fine for you to say to them, and some therapists will do like a 15 or 20-minute consultation call so you can get a little bit of an idea of what they're like. Oftentimes, the intake might be a better indication of whether or not you feel like you can work with that person. And it's okay if you come to the end of the intake and you don't feel comfortable and you say, I don't think that this is going to work. I actually think that I would prefer to work with a therapist who's Catholic or a therapist who's Black or a therapist who's trans or a therapist who's queer, whatever category feels most comfortable for you. There are certain areas that I am just not good in. I have never been trained in working with eating disorders. And so if somebody comes to me and that's what they want to work on, I'm not going to be a good fit for you. I I don't have enough insight into that. It's not something that I've worked with. I don't like doing couples work. I've tried doing couples work. Technically, I can do it according to my license, but I don't enjoy it. I'm not good at it. I like working with individuals. I know some really, really good couples counselors. So I will recommend you to somebody, but I'm not the person that you should be working with.
Mhm.
And any therapist worth their salt should have a network of professionals that they know that specialize in different things that
Mhm.
they can refer you to if you say to them at the end of it, this doesn't feel like it's going to be a good fit. Do
Mhm.
you know anybody that does XYZ or that is Catholic or
Mhm.
whatever the category happens to be? Um, and that's not something that they should be offended by. The other thing I feel there's this power differential, right? Because we have the master's degrees and we have these letters behind our names and we've had these trainings and whatnot. I tell the clients that I work with, I am never going to know you as well as you know you. You are the expert on yourself. I'm just here to try to help for a little bit, right? And so it's okay for you to ask your therapist things like, it says on your website, like this is a fair question that I would be happy to answer for people. It says on your website that you specialize in working with trauma. What does that mean? Tell me about the training that you have received, right? It's a fair question for you to
Mhm.
ask. And if the therapist that you're seeing is offended by that question, that would be a red flag for me.
Added to that, so when we moved to Texas in 2020, we moved out of Texas in 2021 or two. I don't know. We've been here for 3 years, going on 4. Um, the therapist I had while I was in Texas was online, telehealth only. And I was kind of stuck with her just because it was the middle of, 2020.
Yep.
And I didn't really want to spend the time to try to figure out who else I could go to.
Mhm.
But I was annoyed by her almost every single visit because I have a lot of trauma in my past. I have a lot of trauma in my past. There is nothing anywhere that anybody can say to deny that I haven't had that. But being told by your therapist every single visit, you've just been through so much trauma.
Not very helpful.
It was very helpful that it was over a screen and not in person.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I hated it. I hated every single time she said it. Anytime
Mhm.
I went to her going, I'm finding it hard to do X, Y, or Z, and she would go, you've just been through so much trauma.
Okay, and
I don't care. I know. Like, I am the one that knows. Like,
mhm.
but yeah. So that was one therapist that I kind of felt stuck with because of COVID. There was
Sure.
another therapist, however, way back in 2009 or 10, I don't remember, way at the beginning of my mental health crisis. Um, I walked into her office just after I was told that I had bipolar.
Mhm.
And she looked at me and said, I'll have you cured in 6 months.
Oh,
And
my.
I have friends throughout high school and, beyond that had bipolar. And my understanding was that's not curable.
Mm-mm.
So the fact that she was saying that she could cure me in 6 months if I did the work really pissed me off. I walked
Mhm.
out of her office at the end of that, and I was supposed to go and schedule a new appointment. I never scheduled another appointment with her. I went up there and was like, you need to give me somebody else because she's off her rocker.
Mhm.
So yes, I have felt like in certain circumstances I didn't have the choice because I was working as the office for a roofer in 2020 and their business was going really good. I didn't have time to breathe, never
Sure.
mind go find a therapist that
Absolutely.
wouldn't say that to me every single time we met.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I met my therapist that I have now, when we first moved here, the first thing I told her was if you ever
If you ever say to me,
if you ever say, how does that make you feel? Or
We actually hate that question. Trade secret. We hate
I
that
hate that
question.
question too.
Anytime I see them use it in like a movie or a TV show, you know that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like, I have a very hard time watching movies and TV shows where they depict therapy because I'm like, first of all, they would lose their license for that. First of all. First of all. Second of all, that's not what happens. We don't sit there for 45 minutes going back and forth with how does that make you feel? I hate
Because
that
that
question.
would make me feel rage. That's what that
Yes.
makes me feel. Stop asking me that question. But the other one I said was, I was like, don't ever say, well, you've just been through so
So
much
much
trauma.
trauma.
Because I'm telling you now, I'll walk out of this office a very pissed off person and you will never see me again.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
like, I would never.
Fair, fair. Well, but again, this is so I sidetracked myself, but we were talking about what
Mm-hmm.
happens in therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that's going to happen is your intake session.
Mm-hmm.
And your intake session is the first time that you're sitting down with a therapist, whether that's in person or whether that's telehealth. And they're going to go through, I call it the 8 million question. It's the 8 million question session. It is not what they depict therapy to be in Hollywood. Um, I need to get to know you, and I'm going to ask like really intrusive questions, even about things that don't seem like they should be my business.
Mm-hmm.
I ask all of the clients that I work with, when was the last time that you had a physical? When was the last time that you had a complete blood workup? Because there is a mind body connection. And if you've never had a complete blood workup and you are severely anemic, it could very well be that some of the symptoms that you think are depression might have something to do with your low iron levels.
Yeah.
If your thyroid is off, that is going to impact your mood a lot. I had a client that I worked with one time who we had been working together for months before he finally went to go see his primary care. And it turns out he had really, really low testosterone levels. And once he got on the right medication, he felt so much better. And it was like, see, sometimes there's a medical thing going on,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm going to ask about things like that. I'm going to ask you who your support system is. I am going to ask about trauma. I'm going to ask how you
Mm-hmm.
sleep. I'm going to ask how you eat. I'm going to ask about your romantic relationships. I'm going to ask you about work. I'm going to ask you about your substance use and what
Mm-hmm.
that looks like. I'm going to ask you, have you ever been in therapy before? What was that like for you? What worked well? What didn't work well? What do I need to avoid? Um, all different kinds of things like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the intake session. In the intake session, you and your therapist together, because it's a team effort, should come up with some goals that you're working on. Those do not have to be written in stone. They should be reviewed every so often. They can change because hopefully
Mm-hmm.
you start accomplishing some of those goals, or maybe you start doing work with your therapist and they just don't feel as relevant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some goals that would be applicable for therapy? Maybe it can be I want to have less anxiety. I want to be able to get through my workday and not feel this huge knot in my stomach the entire day. I want to be able to have a better relationship with my family. I want to get over this grief that I've been experiencing for the last 6 months. I want to work on some of my trauma. I want to get to a better place with some of my trauma.
I want
Those
to
are,
have coping skills.
I want to develop coping skills, really big
Mm-hmm.
one, right? So those are some pretty common goals that people will come in and work on. I want to have less panic attacks. I want to be able to get on a plane, right? I want to be able to do public speaking. So all
Mm-hmm.
different kinds of things like that. The important thing is though is that those are your goals
Mm-hmm.
and you should feel like you had a part in them. Sometimes I have clients that come to me, they've never been in therapy before, and when I say, "What do you want our time together to be about?" What do your top 2 or 3 goals look like? I get a blank stare and I have no idea. I've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll say, well, based on everything that you just shared with me, the things that I heard coming through as most important were 1, 2, and 3. Those may resonate with you, those may not resonate with you.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. And what these goals do is they provide the roadmap for the work that we're going to do together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you're going to get started. And then the next session is not going to be 8 million questions. It's going to be you and your therapist starting to dive into some of those goals that you've been working on. Okay. So last time when we met, you talked about your primary goal being you want to cut down on the amount of panic attacks that you're having every day. Let's start with that. Now, how every therapist approaches that is going to be different depending on the modalities that we've been trained in. And everybody is different, right? There's no single modality that works for every person. And so some people do better talking through things, and talk therapy is very helpful for them. Some people do better using some of the somatic therapies. Well, I think a lot of people at this point have probably heard of EMDR. Brain spotting is another really, I've been trained in brain spotting, so I'm biased. I love brain spotting. Brain spotting is another modality that is more somatic. You experience it more in your body than just doing talk therapy. But again, I let clients know in the intake, sometimes I may have you try a thing, and especially for clients that I work with that have social anxiety, one of the things that I'll challenge them to do, if they're okay with it, is why don't you try to talk to somebody that you don't know before you and I see each other again? And that can be somebody like the next time you go get your groceries, instead of just cashing out in silence, can you ask them how they're doing? And then let's talk about that next time, you know? And I'm like, you can come back to me next time and say, that was a complete waste of time. I don't know why you had me do that. Or I was too scared to do that. Or I forgot about it, right? But you should feel comfortable to go back to your therapist the next time and talk about what happened or didn't happen, because it could also be that you're avoiding it. In which case, that's something that we need to talk about. But that's kind of what a session looks like, right? I'm going to ask you, how have you been doing since the last time we saw each other? You know, the last session we had was really heavy. We really got into a lot of the grief. You were, emotional. There were a lot of tears. How have you been doing since then? Catch me up. Sometimes we plan on working on things, and so it'll be next time I want to get into the trauma that happened in my first marriage. And I'll say, okay, then that's what we'll work on next time. And that's what I'll kind of have in my brain to pick up on. And then they may come to me and they didn't get the promotion that they had been planning on. And so it's like, well, we're not going to be talking about that first marriage today. We're going to be talking about this promotion, right? So things are also, should be flexible, because life happens and things will change. But that kind of gives you an idea of some of the mysterious things that happen in the therapy room. But it really should not be 50 minutes of you sitting with your therapist and then you saying something and then going, how does that make you feel? It's not. No. Please no.
No, that's unhinged. Please, like, if you have a therapist who starts saying that, be like, blink once for yes and 2 for no. Are you in trouble? Because something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they don't
Absolutely.
get any humor about it, walk out the door, go to the front office and say, yeah, no, I need a new therapist. That one's like a robot or something.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Not every session is going to be enjoyable, right?
Oh,
Especially if we're doing really deep trauma work.
Mhm.
Maybe we're working on the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to you in your life. I've worked with survivors of mass shootings, for example. And I have walked with them back through the day that took place. Those are not easy sessions. Those are not fun sessions. Sometimes you'll walk away feeling like you have been beat up and you need to go sleep. And hopefully, after we've processed through a session like that, the next day or so, you might still feel kind of heavy and beat up, but then it starts to feel better because stuff is shifting inside your nervous system so that it's not hurting as much. And then sometimes there are sessions that are fun and the two of you are laughing and joking with each other and there's humor. There should be humor, you know?
I have a friend, because I go Tuesdays, I don't work from home. I go to the chiropractor and I go to my therapist. And I have one of the guys that I work with, he's a friend, but I've worked with him since 2011. So like he knows me, he knows my mind is stupid. But he'd be like, "Okay, go have fun at therapy." And I'm like, I am so glad that you have never had an experience that you need to be in therapy for, first of
Yeah.
all. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I feel glad about that for certain people. He is Santa Claus on steroids, okay?
Oh.
The guy is the happiest person on earth, and it is honestly troubling sometimes. But he is genuine, he is, he cares and he
Mm-hmm.
shows it. But at the same time, therapy isn't always fun.
Correct.
Therapy isn't always you talking with somebody who is going to agree with everything you've said.
Mm.
They're not going to say no part of this. Well, they might say no part of this was your fault if something was not your fault.
Correct.
But if there is a thing where parts of it were your fault, they're going to say, if you hadn't have done this part, maybe it wouldn't have gone so downhill so fast.
Yep.
There are going to be days when you walk out of therapy and you're sad. You're still crying because you have gone through that thing
The
again.
emotional ringer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are days when you're going to walk out of therapy and you're going to be angry because why the hell do I keep having to do this?
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're going to have days when you walk out laughing because you and your therapist just sat there for an hour talking about politics and religion, which
Mm-hmm.
is not something you could talk to anybody else about because everybody else gets freaking twisted quick
Yep.
about
Yep.
both of those.
Mm-hmm.
You have those days, but you're not always going to have fun. You're not always going to be crying.
Mm-hmm.
Some days it's just going to be, I have no oomph left. I have
Yeah.
no want to do anything. I
Yep.
don't know what's wrong with me. Help. And
Yeah.
like you try to talk it out. And maybe you don't come to a consensus, but you feel a little bit better when you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
maybe you don't feel better. You just feel like we're working on it, so we'll figure it out
Right.
eventually.
There's somebody that's on my side.
Yeah.
There's somebody that's in my corner that's here with me. Right.
Yes. And so
Um,
that helps. But no, therapy is not always fun. They're not always going to be the cheerleader going, "You did nothing wrong." Because sometimes, Chica, you did something wrong.
sometimes you did.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Stop calling your partner a stupid pile of crap. It's not helping. Don't do
Yeah,
that.
no, it's not helping anything. It doesn't make them want to stay. It doesn't make you want to treat them better. It's a bad thing all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And so again, when you think about, here's the other thing that I think people don't understand is that question of how will I know that I'm feeling better? And I think again, stereotypically, I'm blaming a lot of this on Hollywood. There's this like aha moment and everything clicks into place and all of a sudden the hero of the story, takes up painting and everything's cool. You may have, and I hope you do have moments of great insight that you never thought about before.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, though, things are going to change gradually. And you're
It's
not going
the
to be able to pinpoint an exact moment where everything shifted for you. That's not a fair expectation to have, and it's just not what oftentimes happens. It's things that change over time. So the
Mhm.
first therapist that I ever worked with, one of my goals was to really work on my self-confidence. Shout out to Connie. She's amazing. But
Mhm.
I couldn't tell you in what session I started feeling more confident. All I know is that she constantly challenged the negative self-talk that I had and the way that I was putting myself down and insulting me in
Mhm.
ways that I didn't even realize because I'd been doing it for my entire life, right?
Mhm.
And then over time, my inner voice started to change. And it was like, well, but why can't you do those things? Or
Mhm.
do you really suck at this thing? And overall, I started feeling more confident and I started challenging myself to do things that I otherwise would not have done. But I couldn't tell you it was like the
Mhm.
15th session that I had with her. It was
Mhm.
this gradual shift that happened over time. And that's much more common in therapy than I think that people realize.
It's that puzzle piece type thing where each piece gets put into the puzzle. And sometimes you think you're working with a puzzle that is only 5 pieces, one of those little kid ones where,
Yep.
the big huge blob goes into the other big huge blob on the
Yeah.
block,
Yep.
when in reality you're working on one of those 20,000 puzzles that is actually like a 3D rendering of the Big Ben with like each piece is the exact amount of puzzle pieces. The piece is just big enough that scale is I don't know, 1/10 or whatever the size. So you have this huge puzzle that you're putting together, and like you don't recognize that it's finished until after it's been sitting there a while, and you go to react to the next thing that happens, and you go, ho, wait a minute. I didn't react to that like I normally do. Wow, I did good today.
Yep.
And then you start having those conversations with your therapist where you're like, I did so well. When this person started yelling at me, I didn't start yelling back.
And I can tell you on the other side of the couch, I love those sessions. I love it when clients log on because I'm fully virtual right now. But I love it when clients log on and they start with, "You're going to be so proud of me." And I'm like, oh, what happened? What did we do? Could we get really excited? You went to Walmart, you didn't have a panic attack? Kudos to you.
Yeah.
Kudos to you.
Mine is usually, okay, you're going to be super mad at me. What did you do?
I have had those sessions. Yeah.
What did you do? What did you do? And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I swear I didn't do anything. No, what did you do? I'm mad because somebody woke me up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Who woke you up? A person who's like 7 with a flute outside my window? I didn't yell at them though. I went to my friend and I was like, "Get them to stop now."
Could we not be playing the flute at this time of the morning? Thank you. So it's not a linear thing, right?
No.
And there's not going to be these great aha moments. It's more likely that you're going to hear something like, "Huh, I never thought about it that way before." And then you kind of take it home and you sit with it and you chew on it. And and sometimes things don't connect for months. Like I can't tell you the amount of times I've been in a session with a client and they say to me, "Do you remember when you said," and then they finish the sentence and I'm like, "We talked about that like 3 months ago." And they're like, "Yeah, well, I saw my family this weekend and it finally clicked." It's like, "Oh, all right, cool. Well, if it takes 3 months to click, then it takes 3 months to click. That's okay."
My family makes things click too.
Yeah. Yes. When we talk about stressors, family is usually at the top of the list. So, yeah. I think that's another thing that people don't understand about therapy, because that also ties into like the how long will I be in therapy thing. The other thing that I want people to remember is typically you will see your therapist for about anywhere between 50 minutes to an hour once a week, right? That means that you are spending a lot of time not in therapy. And so if you don't take any of the coping skills that you and your therapist have gone over and use them out in the real world, you won't actually know whether or not therapy is working for you because you're only focusing on things in that 1 hour a week that you have with your therapist, whereas you live most of your life not in therapy.
Yes. So I have 2 coping skills that I use the most often. A lot of the times, if it's something, okay, my mom was allergic to paying rent, to paying bills. She would constantly have the bank account go into the red, stuff like that. So you go to the grocery store and all of a sudden you can't get what you're going for because there's not enough money in the account.
Right.
So a couple months, it's been like 8 months. I don't know. It was a long time ago. within 2025 at some point. We were at Aldi, and I have a credit card that was not at its limit. It was nowhere near its limit, but it wasn't working.
Oh no.
It would not work. And so I started to panic. Obviously, I was losing my stuff because this is exactly what happens to me, of all people, right?
Yep.
So I started doing the cherry pickers, and I will do them really fast, especially like they at mile a minute when my anxiety's going off. It mostly tells people around me, hey, I'm not okay. I may look like nothing is happening, but something is happening. And it was me doing that triggered my friend to come in and step in and go, you're fine. You have the money for this. You're fine. It's just an issue on their end. We'll get it fixed.
Some kind
it's
of
not
technology
a big deal.
glitch. Yeah.
It's not a big deal. And so she stepped in and got it to work, and it was fine. It was that machine had been having trouble reading cards all day. I was just lucky number 50 who had problems with it.
Yeah.
But I, for a hot minute there, was back as a 6-year-old having to put things back because mommy can't afford
the card
anything.
wasn't going through. Yeah.
So
yeah,
there was that. But I also have this thing. So it's the grounding techniques. So I have a problem with the way that this is done for a lot of people. So I do it differently because you're going to end up having to go on a hunt for things if you're in the same room having a panic attack and you have to step down. Because I step down gradually. I don't go through this list once and go, oh yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm good now. That's not how it works. So it says 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. If I go through this list over and over and over again, and I do 5 things I can see, I'm going to run out of things I can see, and I'm going to have to go on a witch hunt to find stuff that I can see.
Right.
If I do 4 things I can feel, I'm going to run out of things that I can feel.
Right.
And for sure, things you can taste. What am I doing? Licking things? I'm going to run out of those way faster because I don't know. I don't taste anything, Karen. Like, what? So I go 1 thing I can see, 1 thing I can feel, 1 thing I can hear, 1 thing I can smell. And if I can taste anything, we throw that in. If not, we don't because whatever.
Right.
And then as I go through, I do it 1 again. Because that way I can step down and calm down, breathing and like focusing on finding something I can see, something I can feel, hear, smell. My sense of smell is way out there, so I don't like get stuck on that one either. Like if I can't smell anything new, we're not going looking for smells because I don't want an asthma attack today.
Right.
So it's fine. But so I take it in smaller chunks to be able to step down my breathing and my, the whole, holy crap, I'm gonna die.
Right. And it works for you.
And it works for me.
You've adapted it to a way that it works for you.
Other people go through that once and they're perfectly fine. I don't know how. Don't look at me. That's not me. It's never been my experience. But if it works going through that once and if you spill out all of those things, you're perfect, you're calm again. Great. Good for you. Great for you, actually, because trying to find another 5 things you can see is like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe come to life again. You're going to end up stuck in Narnia because you can't find something you can taste for the 3rd time.
Right.
Because we're not like doing taste tests. But if you are like me and you have to do it slower, or if you're like, okay, I did 5 things and I see 5 things, but now I have to do 5 more things and I see 3 more things, what do I have to do? Well, technically, you're supposed to like move or something. I don't know what you're supposed to do at that point. But that's why I don't like going on a witch hunt to find more things. So I just make sure that I'm not going to run out and I have the step downs that I need.
Absolutely.
So however it works for you, it works for you.
That's also the beauty of coping skills, right? Is you take it, you've adapted it to suit your own needs, and it works for you, right? So that should be another thing where, again, as a therapist, I want that feedback.
Mhm.
Hey, so I tried this five senses thing that you said, and I ran out of things to be able to look at. So I've decided to do it this way instead. And
Mhm.
you know what I'm going to say to you? I'm so glad that you found a way to adapt that it works to meet your needs,
Yeah.
and that you are able to de-escalate yourself and get yourself back
Mhm.
into a more regulated nervous system.
I
Right?
was also in chorus, like from like the beginning of school all the way up. I was in it ninth grade, and then I was in it my senior year. So I know how to do the deep breathing real well. And
Mm,
so combining the deep breathing with the five senses,
hmm.
that's how I step down,
Yeah.
because I know how to do that breathing really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Real life with the people that make you angry, with the people that make you sad, with the people that make you anxious.
Mhm.
If you're only using these coping skills in a 1 hour therapy session with your therapist, it's not going to help you in the long run.
Not only that, but if you're only using them with the therapist and you're not using them on your own, even without those situations popping up at first, you're not going to have them in your pocket to use. Like, you have to practice the cherry pickers. Like, this is not something that most people pick up straight out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Talking while doing that is actually harder than it looks.
I believe that. It
Just
takes a
to
lot of
say.
concentration. Yeah. Yeah.
But I've been doing them for years, so yeah. But it's still like
It's muscle memory for you at
yeah.
this point. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're not like practicing with them, then you're not going to use them when they matter most, and you're still going to go to your therapist going, you gave me a coping skill and
Yeah.
I
It
didn't
didn't
use
work.
it because I couldn't remember it when it was time to.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's because you're not actually practicing.
In real world. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The
So
other thing
I
that
have
happens,
this, I
oh,
have
sorry, go
this
ahead.
like thing. This is on my desk, and it's on my desk
Mm-hmm.
for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
because I will sit here while I'm working and I will feel my anxiety shoot out to Pluto. Poor thing,
Mm-hmm.
can't decide if it's a planet or not. Sure, it feels anxiety too, but
Poor Pluto.
poor Pluto. Like,
Pluto
it's
needs
been
therapy.
like planetized and unplanetized so many times at this point.
Pluto
But
for sure.
but I'll sit here and I'll feel it, and I just sit in it because why not? I've had to live that way for a long time. Why wouldn't I? And then I'll see this and I'll go, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but you don't have to.
Yeah, there's a thing that I can do about it.
There's something I can do about
Mm-hmm.
this. I
Yep.
can't. And I got this off Amazon. So like just go find it.
Yep. The other
I
thing
don't have a
that
link.
the other thing that I think we should normalize and people should understand is you can go to different therapists at different points in your life, right?
Hmm.
So that first therapist that I saw, she and I did a lot of work on my self-confidence, and we worked together for, I don't know, honestly, I don't remember, maybe about a year or so.
Hmm.
And I felt better, and so I stopped doing therapy with her. And then a couple of years later, I got diagnosed with infertility. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of mental health stuff that comes with a diagnosis of infertility and trying to start a family, and IVF is very stressful. And so I found another therapist, but I found her because she specialized in fertility issues, and that was what she worked on.
Hmm.
And so I got back into therapy to work on that particular thing with somebody that's specialized in those particular issues, right?
Hmm.
So depending on what you have going on in your life, you may get to a good place with a therapist, and then 3 years down the road, something else happens, and then you need somebody that specializes in something different. And so you seek out somebody that specializes in those things. And that's okay. And that's also a very normal part of the journey. I've also had it happen before where I've been working with a client for, I don't know, 6 months or 8 months or something like that. And either they or I say, it feels like we've come to a natural end of our journey together. And what I would recommend from here is that you find a therapist who specializes in XYZ thing. I'm happy
Hmm.
to help you find somebody. I've got a pretty good network of professional resources. But I think that you do better with a therapist who primarily does work in whatever it happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an okay conversation to have too,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that we really need to normalize that piece of the journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Also, the questions that a therapist will ask depend on you. If you are there for a little thing, they're going to ask a bunch of questions, sure, even if you're there for a little thing. But the questions that happen to somebody who have had 1 or 2 traumas or have just found out something or whatever, their questions and answers are only going to take 1 visit. On the other hand, I will refuse to go to another therapist while mine is out for 6 weeks because they're pregnant and they're going to, give birth. I won't go to another therapist because why would I do that when that whole 6 weeks is me trying to get them up to speed on who I am as a person?
Yes.
That's not happening. I'm not
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
I have a backup therapist for when that happens. I have a friend of my actually the sister of my friend is a licensed therapist, and she talks with me on the side as a help to balance out because of when therapists have needed a break, the move between the 2 different, like I've moved twice with them, that kind of stuff happening. There's always those in betweens, and I have to have somebody that I can talk to.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the way my brain works after all of the things that I have gone through, I have to be able to have somebody to talk to when my brain says, you're an idiot, nobody likes you, go walk off a bridge, stupid stuff that I'm not going to do because I have put a wall between me and the stupid thing. And I call it the stupid thing for a reason. You can be offended. That's your point. But really, I call it that because to me, it is stupid. And I call it that because if I ever do it, I'm being stupid. I let something get to me that should not have gotten to me, and I'm doing the stupid. So we don't do that. We have a wall between me and it. It's never going to happen, and I go through my life like that. And it's just better for everybody that my brain thinks of it like that.
Yep, exactly. That's a coping skill that you've developed.
Yes. Because I do have the sewer slide idolation thing happening, and by having that wall, I know that those thoughts are stupid, and I don't have to listen to them.
Yep.
And lithium is my friend.
Well researched, been on the market for years.
Yes, is
The
my
reason
friend.
It's been around for years. Yes.
Because it takes those to a place where I can handle them. But and if you go to the therapist and they're like, I think you need to be seen by a meds doctor, don't walk away going, I don't believe in medicine. Because what kind of caveman crap is that? You don't believe in medicine? You take Tylenol when you're in pain, don't you?
Yep.
You obviously believe in medicine. Knock it off.
Yeah.
Go get something that will help you be better. It's not a crutch. It is something that sometimes is necessary.
Correct.
Let's not, shame people for taking the meds that help them. Dude,
Absolutely.
if I didn't have sleeping pills, me being the absolute chronically insomniac that I am, I would sleep once every 5 or 6 nights.
Yep.
For 24 to 48 hours.
Yep. Yeah.
That's not a livable life.
No.
I've did it for years, and lots of things happened that shouldn't have happened and wouldn't have happened if I'd had a regular sleep schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
now,
here's what
I'm on the thing that will put me down like a horse because that's
what your body needs. That's what your body needs. Listen. And what I tell people is this, because I do have clients who are hesitant about the medication route. And so if I feel like that's something that they would benefit from, my recommendation is always have the conversation. Set up an initial appointment, see what the med provider says. You don't have to do what they recommend, but you will at least walk away having more information than what you have right now. I am not a medical provider. I cannot prescribe. I don't want to prescribe. That's a lot of chemistry I would have to learn, and I'd have to go back to school.
I prescribe it either, but I know that the meds I'm on are what is helping
If
me.
it's working for you, then it's working for you. But at least have a conversation with them, see what they recommend, and then make your decision from there with more information, right?
Yep.
The other thing is that I think a lot of people think that if they get started on medication, that means that they have to be on medication for the rest of their lives. There are some medications that fall into that category. Not every single mental health medication is in that category. Maybe you need something to help get you through a particularly bad depressive episode, but you do that under the supervision of a med provider. You go in telling them, I don't want to be on this for forever. And you and your med provider make a plan together for how to wean you off of that medication safely and effectively. Because there are certain medications, if you take them and you just stop cold turkey, it is very dangerous. Don't do that.
No, I don't. If
You should
you are
be
on
making
meds,
those
take your meds.
decisions
If
with your med
you
providers.
take your meds as prescribed, the only time I ever stopped taking a medication is because turns out I was allergic to it. And when I took it, it made me like scratch until I bled. Not exactly the look you're going for, no matter the season.
No.
So that stopped that medication. But, and then the doctor, once I could finally get a hold of him, was like, oh, thank God you stopped. Because, yeah, no, that's not supposed to happen.
Don't do that. It's not good.
Like, don't keep taking that. But
the other
if you
thing
are
is
on meds,
tell
just
your med provider if you're experiencing side effects.
yes.
I have clients, again, amazing people who will come to me and tell me, all of a sudden I'm getting migraines, or all of a sudden I have absolutely no libido. My sex drive is gone. And I'm like, these are very valid conversations that I can't do anything about. So I need you to call your med provider and make an appointment with them, or send a message through your patient portal and have this conversation with them. I don't know if this is a potential side effect of your medication. It could be, but I don't know what the solution is here. You need to have that conversation with your med provider. I have to stay in my lane, and my lane is not anything to do with medications, you know?
So, for instance, I have had a headache since 2019, May of 2019. Every single day I have a headache. Some days it's way worse, some days it's less, but I've always had a headache since 2019. In I don't know, I've had 3 MRIs, I've had a spinal tap. Like, they can't figure out what's wrong. But one of them decided to label me as idiopathic intracranial hypertension. One of the causes for that can be lithium.
Oh.
So I went to my meds doctor and was like, hey, guess what? I need to switch, because if this is causing the headache, it's easy enough to figure out. Let's take me off of it for a little bit, and then in a couple months, if that's not it, we'll go back on it. I went off of it, went on to something else. And then this last time she was like, did you want to go back to lithium? And I was like, yes, because it's not the problem. It's not the one. So yes, let's continue doing that, because I'm done with this other thing and I don't like it. But so I am back with my lithium again. And that's perfectly fine. But my meds doctor was willing to work with me on that, because she understood where I was coming from, having the headaches all the time, and like, wait, is this lithium? Let's figure it out, because if we can stop having MRIs because I'm claustrophobic, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Claustrophobic and noise sensitive. And if you've ever had an MRI, you know those things are loud as all heck. Not a good thing. So I absolutely hate MRIs, and having 3 of them is like, especially when nobody's finding anything, it's like, okay, could you stop putting me in the claustrophobia tunnel of doom? Like, I would really appreciate it.
With all of the loud noises, thanks.
Yeah. Like, there's somebody in there trying to get out. Could you just let them out now? Like, they can come into the out now. It'll be perfectly fine. It's just fine. Just stop. But yeah, talk to your people. Like, talk to your therapist, talk to your meds doctor. Even if you only have a 5-minute meeting, if you say, hey, guess what? I have this new thing that started.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Could it be a side effect?
Yep.
Talk to them. They are going to go, maybe let's try XYZ. Or nope, that's not something this medicine has ever been known to do.
Mm-hmm. But you need to have the conversation with them.
But you have to have the conversation
Yeah.
to do that. But don't
Yeah.
just stop taking meds on your own. So we are all good with that. Are there any other points you wanted to make before we finished?
Well, I always like to close with letting people know that it's okay to not be okay. There are millions of people out there struggling with things, many of whom we're not even aware that they are going through something. And there is no shame in seeking out help, even if that's something that you've been taught your entire life. One of the bravest things you'll probably ever do is set up an appointment to speak to somebody and give yourself permission that if the first person you meet with just doesn't feel like the right fit, that it's okay for you to seek out somebody else, and talk to them. And the first place I would recommend you get started is if you have commercial health insurance, is see who is in network with your commercial health insurance. Therapy Den is a really great resource for people to, you can search by state, by modality, by religion, by insurance coverage, all those kinds of things. Um, and it's okay. It's okay if this is the first time that you're coming to therapy. It's okay if you had a bad experience and you feel like you're giving it a try again. But the most important thing is that you're doing what you need to do to take care of you. And that's not something that you need to be ashamed of.
Completely agree. And it is always better to take care of yourself than to do the stupid.
Mm-hmm. 100% of the time.
I
But yeah.
just keep like I think that's why it ended up being the stupid
Yep, that makes sense.
because it's what I call it in my head.
Yep.